Welcome to Generation Hope, a podcast by connect.faith. My name is Cali Bronkema, and this season we're focusing around the theme of identity. I'll be having conversations with a wide variety of young adults with the goal of building empathy and understanding between communities. So today I'm speaking with Morgan, who I will be calling Momo through the rest of this podcast, but Momo Lindsay, a PhD candidate with a focus in public policy and a concentration in social policy. Thanks so much for being here, Momo.
Thank you for having me. It's so weird to hear my title.
Sounds very official, right?
It really does.
Yeah, you earned it. Well, I'd love if you can just start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. As Callie said, my name is Morgan Lindsay, but since I was probably about 2, everyone has known me as Momo, and that's actually how Callie knows me. I think for me, Momo solidifies someone who embraced who she was. I hated that nickname growing up. But when I went to college, I was like, oh, this is about me now. Like, I'm not in the shadow of my siblings. I'm not having to listen to my parents' rules. So Momo's who I am. Morgan is only used for professional bases. So papers, job interviews, signatures, stuff like that. But what about me? Such a hard question. I was homeschooled until college, so I'm very awkward and nerdy. I embrace my homeschool identity with a passion. That is truly who I am. Big proponent of it, and I support it. And I'm a huge nerd. So anything comic book, anything musicals, anything music related to, I'm all in that. I love anime. I've been a Christian probably since I was born. I was raised in the church, but making my faith my own probably about around the age of 11. And I am just passionate about social justice and embracing who you are and who God kind of has you to be. And what does that look like in society when it's so hard with all the images of people on social media and magazines and movies, what it's like to be your authentic self when the world is trying to shut that down.
I love that. And it sounds like when you're talking about your authentic self, you almost created the perfect circle back to the beginning where you talked about you choosing your name and like choosing to make that truly you. So it sounds like choosing your authentic self has really been at the core of your journey.
Yeah, it's been a long one too. I'm not that old. I'm only 28, but it feels like I've been working through this probably since I was like 10. Yeah.
So you mentioned a few things, your nerdiness and how much your faith means to you. What else would you say goes into your identity and who you are?
Ooh, that's a good one. Accepting the things that I can't control. And for me, I can't control what people think about me. I can't control the number on the scale or the fact that I went up a pant size or went down a pant size. How can I phrase this? I can't control the negativity that I feel like is always on me because of who I am. And the fact that I am a Black woman, the fact that I'm a woman, the fact that I am getting my PhD, like the fact that I'm putting myself out there in a lot of ways. I've seen stares, I've seen looks, I've seen people saying I'm being prideful, or I've heard those phrases, or why do you have confidence? You shouldn't be confident with how you look. So I think for me, it's understanding that I can't control those aspects, but it doesn't diminish my worth or who I am.
Just because there are roadblocks in front of you that society has placed there doesn't mean you can't kick them down, and doesn't mean that doesn't. It's not about you. It's not reflecting you. It's reflecting society.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to go back to this theme of authentic self and what you talked about a little bit. You're trying to accept the things that you can't control. Can you just kind of take us through your journey of, because that, the way you're sounding now is you're sounding like this amazing, confident woman who you are, and you're sounding very in control of your emotions, and I have to imagine you were not always at this
No.
point in your journey. So can you take us back a little bit and talk to us about how did you get to the point where you're able to say, you know, there are things I can't control, but I'm just going to have to be me and go for it.
I think it started, like, growing up, I was always, like, the bigger girl, and I think in my mind, I thought I was way bigger than what I was. So, like, when I look back on pictures of me at, like, 10, I'm like, I wasn't that big. Why did everyone make it seem like I was the size of a whale? Like, I always felt like that, because they would make jokes, oh, don't let her sit on the couch, it's gonna flip, or, oh, watch what she's eating, she's gonna eat the whole thing, and I always laughed the jokes off, because that's kind of like what I was taught. Like, their words don't mean anything to you. Like, until you give them value, then they have value. So I was able to laugh at the jokes, but it didn't stop it from hurting.
Yeah.
And it didn't stop it from me kind of second guessing a lot of stuff. Shopping for clothes was always difficult, because they didn't really have a true kids plus size for girls growing up. So I was in this awkward stage of, like, I'm not a woman. I don't wear women's clothes. I don't want to dress like a grandmother. But I can't wear the clothes that Limited too, because they don't make them for girls that look like me. So I was always this constant battle. My parents not being able to go to certain events because they couldn't find clothes for me to fit. And that was really hard. But my mom always embraced my thickness. And she's like, you're a plus-size diva. Society just hasn't figured it out yet. We just got to keep shopping until we can find a store that has clothes for you. So there were many times throughout my teenage years where my friends would go to American Eagle or Aeropostale, Hollister, like all the really popular brands we had growing up, and I would just stand back. I would watch. I would help them pick out their clothes, or I would go to Claire's because I could get earrings, but I knew I couldn't buy any clothes. And that was really hard. That's really hard on your self-esteem, because you want to be able to shop with your friends. You don't want to be that friend that's sitting on the sidelines. So that would be probably from, like, preteen to teenage years, but I think it really hit when I was 16. We had a house fire, so my family and I were staying in a hotel for so long. It was so long. Don't recommend it. And we had to do, like, a wellness check with the doctor, and you know, we did everything that we were supposed to do, going through the motions, and at the end, he was like, we need to talk. And if you ever had that we need to talk conversation with a doctor and you're heavier, you know it's about your weight. So I'm just mentally preparing myself for this thing. He's going to tell me I'm fat, something I've always known. And he just looks right at me. My mom's in the appointment, because, again, I'm 16. And he goes, your life isn't worth saving.
What?
And it caught me off guard. And I was like, what do you mean? And my mom got quiet, because, again, it caught us both off guard. And he goes, your life's not worth saving. If you were ever to get into a car accident, they would just let you die, because they wouldn't want to rescue you because of how fat you are. And
you were a 16-year-old girl.
I was 16. And he said that the only reason I had health insurance at that time was because I was a minor, but when I got my own job, no employer would want to give me health insurance because I was a liability. And that conversation put me on a journey of questioning my worth and what my worth really meant, because this is an important person in a position of leadership telling me that my life's not worth saving. So I'm apparently worthless. And I accepted that. And I didn't tell anyone I accepted that, because my parents were rightfully upset trying to figure out how do they report this doctor who was truly out of line. Even if there was some truth to that conversation, he had no right to say that to a minor. If he wanted to say it to my mom, he could have pulled her aside and said, hey, she's going down a path that's not unhealthy. But to completely say that no one would want to save my life was detrimental.
Yeah. I'm quite shocked right now, to be honest. I can't imagine the toll, like, on your mental health and on your psyche. If, like you said, this is someone who we're told from a young age, like, this is the person you trust in times of trouble, right? Like, you go to a doctor if you're not feeling well. To be told by someone in a position of authority the exact opposite of everything, you know, you're grown up told about what doctors should be telling you. That's horrifying, honestly.
It was. When I think back on it, I think I smiled and played the part of like, oh, letting my parents take care of it, but I internalized a lot of it and thought, okay, he's right, I'm worthless. That's why I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. That's why I was always the weird one. That's why I was always the fat one no one really wanted to talk to. Or I was too happy because no one wanted to like that because I was worthless, so it made sense. I was overcompensating by being so happy. And it started to make me question things that were truly my identity. My happiness is my identity. No matter if I'm sad, no matter if I'm feeling broken, no matter if I'm hurt, I am always smiling. Because you can't take my smile or my joy from me. And I allowed someone to take my joy. And that was really hard to finally admit to myself that someone took my joy.
Yeah. So how did you know, that was when you were 16, you're 28, and in a completely different place right now. How did you get here?
I was working at a Christian college out in Western PA, and I was dealing with a health challenge. I have a breathing condition that can sporadically flare up at any point in time. And during that time, when it started in college, I was kind of told that I was a burden and no one really wanted to help me. And I had friends not really want to help me because it was getting challenging to be around something so sporadic. But I did have a core group of people who didn't care. They're like, we'll be there for you no matter what. Like, don't worry about what everyone else is saying. We have your back. But I didn't truly believe it because that voice of, but I'm not worth saving, was kind of always there. And it was during my last couple weeks working at this job that I had a fit in front of our vice president, which is mortifying in any sense. And my one coworker, he looked at me and I was like, I'm so sorry, this is so embarrassing, like, I'll leave. And he was like, why? So you can get worse and no one knows? He was like, Mo, your life is worth saving and we want to help you. And in that instance, it was almost like a weight lifted off of me. And it clicked. And I just looked at him and I'm like coughing through it and trying not to cry. And later on, I thanked him for that. I said, you really don't know how much that meant to me and what you just did for me. And he was like, but your life is worth saving. And like, if someone told you otherwise, I'm sorry. But like, the truth is you deserve to be alive. And I was like, yes, like, stop it. Stop saying the nice words to me. But thank you. And I needed to hear that. And through that, I was probably 24, 25. I've been constantly working through, I am worthy. I am worthy to have treatment. I am worthy to be loved. I am worthy to be accepted. And no matter what other people have said, it can't diminish my worth because I am worthy to be here.
Yeah.
And it's been hard. I'm not going to lie. This past year has been really brutal. But constantly being reminded that I am worthy.
Yeah.
Is kind of always been there.
Yeah. And that's such a powerful message of just reminding yourself, like, you're valued. If that makes sense. Like, there's so much more to you than just this one thing that the doctor decided to harp on one time, right? Like, there are so many reasons that someone deserves love and attention. And when you were talking about all of this, something that really hit me is the weight that our words have. Like, just one sentence totally flipped your mindset. And that happened to you twice, right? Like, it flipped your mindset towards a negative way, and then another sentence flipped it towards the positive. And as we're going through life, we never know who we're really talking to half the time, right? Like, we never know what somebody's going through unless we know them, like, unless it's a family member, a close friend. And even then, sometimes we truly don't know what's going on. And our words really carry meaning. And we have to respect the power of that.
Yeah, and I think I saw something, I don't know if it was Instagram or Twitter or something, and it was this post that said, sometimes we're the villains of someone else's story and don't realize it. And I made myself the villain in my own story, not realizing that it was actually other people and their words.
Yeah.
And I had to, and that's really what I'm working on this year, is forgiving myself for believing that I was the villain. Forgiving myself for believing that I was this monster in my head that was wreaking havoc on everyone else's life because of my weight, because of how I looked, when really the monster was the words that other people spoke to me. The monster was this belief that I was worthless. And it's been eye-opening for me to just be like, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. I am not accepting that narrative. Let me take back the narrative that was spoken over me my whole life.
Yeah.
I'm in charge of the story. Well, God is, but he's helping me reclaim the story and be in charge of it, because no, how dare you?
Yeah. And that's so powerful it's essentially a story of grace. And I don't know. Do you ever feel like it is easier to show others grace than it is to show yourself?
Honestly, I think it's depending on who I'm giving grace to.
That's just fair.
That is me being very honest in this moment. I think I'm a huge proponent of telling people that they need to show themselves grace. And I believe I show myself grace, but this was an area where I thought I healed from. And this year God was showing me that I truly didn't heal from it. I sugarcoated it, and I kind of put a Band-Aid on it. But this year, someone ripped that Band-Aid off and reiterated those words to me in a different way. And it caused me to break down. And I'm not one to cry. You worked with me at camp. I don't cry a lot. Even no matter how stressed or tired or much pain I'm in, to get me to actually cry shows how much it hurt.
Yeah.
So I was showing myself grace, but I wasn't showing myself grace in the area that needed it the most.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting to me, too, because one thing that I really admire about you is that you're very open about your journey to accepting your body and body positivity on your social media.
Thank you.
But, yeah, I mean, it's... So when I hear you talk about all the times that you've been hurt about these things, I admire you even more, because you're really putting yourself out there, and almost like the boldness, and like you can see the courage in your words, in the captions. It's almost like you're daring someone to come at you, and like,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, you're saying like, no, this is who I am. Do you have something to say about it? How do you ever get nervous or scared posting things like that?
I think, honestly, that's why my accounts are private. So it's to my friends and family who don't know my struggles and the journey that I've taken. But I know if they don't like the message that I'm saying, they just won't like it. But they're not going to come at me negatively. I've toyed with making my accounts public, but in the space that I'm in now and the growth that I'm taking, I don't want to invite that into my life.
Yeah.
Knowing that is a possibility, why open the doors for negativity if I'm not going to do it to become an influencer or to broaden that platform, but to just remind the people in my inner circle their worth and their value. And that to me is important, because then they can also share it too. And they can also tell people that too. Because I wouldn't stop anyone with that. Like, oh, I had this friend who just posted this. See what she just wrote. Yeah, talk to me about it. But I haven't felt the need to make it like public for the whole world to see.
You're creating boundaries for yourself within, I have chosen the people to share this journey with. But like you said, they're not all people who know every step of your journey. And you're almost doing a public service in that you're like you said, you're showing other people that they are worthy too, and that they have worth too. When did you decide when or how, you can choose how you want to answer it, but what was kind of the decision-making process of, I want to be more open about this, and I want to share pieces of my journey that maybe I haven't shared before with some of my friends and family.
So I am on a health journey right now. Battling my health right now has been a journey. There are most days where I can't get out of bed. There are days where I can't really walk because I'm just in so much pain. Get a lot of brain fog. Like there's a lot going on with myself health wise, and navigating doctors. Doctors have been the villains of my story. And I have a primary care who is phenomenal, and I will sing his praises through the end of time because he has really helped me heal from doctor trauma. And he's made me feel heard and valued, and he's made me feel worthy enough to actually seek treatment. The specialists who I have seen have made it difficult because most of their answers have been lose weight, lose weight, lose weight. We're not going to give you medicine. Try losing weight. See if that helps. And it's been really hard because there are days that the pain is so bad and I can't do anything about it because all they're telling me to do is lose weight. So instead of giving me pain medicine, they gave me weight loss medicine to see if that will help. And that destroyed my ego. And not in like this whole I'm boastful, I'm too good for weight loss medicine, because I think there's a stigma behind weight loss medicine, but they are ignoring my pain. They're ignoring something that has now become part of my identity to fit societal standards. And that hurt. And I had one doctor say, well, we could give you weight loss surgery, but you probably wouldn't be successful at it because you're going to go back to your normal diets anyway. And I was like, what do you mean? And she goes, well, you do know, like, if you eat 2 brownies, that's your calorie intake for the day. And I was like, yeah. And she goes, so maybe you should try eating avocados instead of brownies. And I'm not one... Did
she know anything about your diet beforehand, or was she assuming this was what your diet was?
I told her what my diet was, and I told her, like, I don't really eat a lot anyway. I was like, I know, contrary to what I look, I don't eat a lot, but I do have a balanced diet. I do green smoothies in the day. I do watch what I'm eating. If I want to reward myself, I reward myself, but it's not like I'm going to eat a whole bag of chips or a whole cake, apparently, because that's the assumption, right? And she just didn't believe me. So she's like, but if you're eating those 2 brownies, that's your calories for the day. So maybe you should eat avocados instead. What is that? Who said that I was eating avocados? Who said that I wasn't eating avocados? Like, who said that I wasn't getting my fruits and vegetables in? You know? And it was at that same appointment that she looked at me and was like, you are so pretty. And I was like, thank you. She's like, but you're so fat. So let's fix the fat so we can keep you pretty.
Are you kidding?
And that
oh my goodness,
destroyed me. That hurt. That wound. That went back to that wound of I'm not worth saving. That went back to the wound of no one wants to treat me because of my weight. No one wants to help me because of how I look. Why is it that I am not supposed to exist? Because of how much I weigh? Why is it that people are deeming me unworthy of medical treatment because of a number on a scale? Why is that? And I came home from that appointment. I came to my parents and I just cried. I said, I'm so sick and tired of people telling me I don't deserve to exist on this earth because of how much I weigh. They don't know how active I was until all this pain started. They don't believe me. Like, I have been doing 5Ks for the past, like, year and a half, but no one believes that. They're like, oh, okay, they're virtual, so they don't count. And I'm like, no, it's because they're virtual that I'm successful. I don't have to compete. I don't have to do this. I can do it at my own pace, but I did it.
Yeah.
That movement's not enough for them. And it was in that moment I was really frustrated. And I was like, Jesus, I'm choosing to be frustrated. I'm choosing to actually feel these emotions because I tend to ignore them. What am I supposed to learn? And in that moment, I said, I'm not holding back anymore. I'm not going to hold back. So after, I think most of my posts come almost after every doctor's appointment. I was just like, no, I'm done with you guys telling me something that's not true. You don't get to determine my worth.
The biggest thing running through my mind right now is like flashbacks to a high school health class. and how they were always like, well, you know, we're really emphasizing health. And it's not that we care about how you look, it's just that being, you know, X amount of pounds or being here on the BMI chart, that is an indicator of how healthy you are. And so that's like the mantra that I've been told probably since I was like 10 years old until now, of like, well, it's just all about health. That's all we care about. So to hear that that you are telling doctors, no, I am following your rules. I'm being active. I'm running 5Ks. I have a balanced diet. And like, heck yeah, it's okay to reward yourself after a hard day or after you've, you know, and they're just ignoring you and not believing you is so, like you said, frustrating, because it goes against everything that we are told is true, essentially, right? It's like going against what they say they're doing. I guess my question here is, what would you say to someone who is on the same journey as you right now and is going to these doctors and trying to say, like, no, I'm doing what you're telling me to do. The pain started, you know, that essentially doctors aren't believing them. What would you say to them?
This is something I'm still learning too, so it's a great question. One thing that I have been doing it as like my stick it to the man recently is refusing to get on the scale, because as adults we can refuse to get on the scale. I know children, I don't think, have the same privileges unless...
Oh, you're talking about at doctor's office, not just at your home. Mm-hmm. Got you. Okay.
At the doctor's office. They can... I don't know if children can. They might be with parental consent. That I can't speak for fully. But I know as adults we can refuse to get on the scale. So I have been refusing to get on the scale at appointments. So that if they try to bring up my weight, they don't have anything to reference because it's not on their chart for the day. So that's my big stick it to the man. That's been like recently. Advocating for yourself is really important, and I think you have to determine what that looks like and how that looks like for your journey. But for me, I struggle speaking up at doctor's appointments. I think because I get so caught off guard and I turtle in, I shut down. So I have someone in the room with me to at least combat what they're saying if need be, or they can be a sounding board when I leave to make sure we heard the same thing. It's like, should I have been offended by that? You should have, because that was really rude. Or no, they really meant it in this way. It's just kind of how they said it. Is kind of how I've been navigating doctors. I haven't left the doctors that I have just yet, but like, there's personal reasons for that. But a lot of people will advocate for you to find new doctors. And I do agree with that. My journey is just a little bit different because of how complicated my case is right now. So it's not the best time for me to do that. So for navigating doctors, that would be my advice. But for at-home life, do you mean dealing with like friends and family, or how they're viewing themselves?
Let's do both. Why not?
Remind yourself of who you are. What phrase stands that you hear that you go, that is me? What song lyric do you hear that you go, that is me? What song amps you up? You know, and writing sticky notes on your mirror is something I love. I used to do that in college, of just like, I am worthy, I am accepted, I am enough, I have value. And just seeing those every day as a constant reminder. Wearing clothes that you know you look sexy in. You know, wearing clothes that you feel confident and comfortable in, that when you look at yourself, you're like, oh yeah, I look good. No matter what anyone else says, but you do it. There are days where I don't feel confident. There are days where I struggle. And those are sometimes the days where I post on Instagram because I put on an outfit that I feel really cute in. And I'm like, oh, who is that? Okay. Everyone needs to see this. And finding your coping skill. For me, writing is a coping skill. So a lot of the things that I'm posting are things that I've written out, and they match the day. They match the outfit. They match kind of the mood that I'm in. and writing is very therapeutic for me, but so is listening to music. And I have music where I feel like I want to burn something. So what music can like fit that emotion? This is a musical day. This is an Adele day because I just need to feel sad.
Yeah.
This is the day, like for me, like in my faith, this is a day where I just need to worship. And I just need to read my Bible. I need to do a devotional. I need to find a sermon. I need to pray because I need something that's going to sustain me in a different way that I'm not getting from myself. For friends and family, I think that is always going to be hard. And for me, I take insults from my friends and family harder than I do from outside sources because those are people who know my struggles, who've seen me go through this journey, but yet still jab.
Yeah.
Or yet back a claim from a doctor. And I think because I'm so happy, because I'm always smiling, because I'm always joking, they see that as an opportunity for them to dismiss something about me. And even when I speak up, sometimes it's hard for them to hear me. So I've been working on maybe not telling my friends and family until after I've processed everything, so that when they do say a joke, I can actually let it slide off instead of going to them in the moment of the hurt.
Yeah.
Because they might not be supportive in the moment. Or saying, hey, I don't want your opinion. I don't want your advice. I'm literally just coming to you to say this. Take it. Leave it. Don't speak on it. And just throwing it out there. And they're like, okay, you better now? I'm great. Cool. I'll see you guys later.
Yeah.
And just like having that space, but also knowing when to say you've had enough of putting your foot down with them and their words. Like, hey, you crossed the line. I'm not going to allow you to disrespect me like that. Like, we're done with that conversation. So setting up boundaries too.
Yeah. I really like what you said about giving yourself time to process first before you open it up for others to comment, right? And setting that boundary. I just love everything you've said. I mean, I think this message just of you are worthy, first of all, has been the theme of all of this. But then making sure that you're reminding yourself of it. And, like, I love the putting Post-it notes up or, like, finding a song that makes you feel worthy is so great. I was wondering if you would be okay if we switch topics a little bit, because I know this is not, you are a complex, unique individual, and this is not the only part of your identity. So I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about your PhD candidacy and kind of what has led you to public policy. And you can say no, and we can talk about something else if you'd rather talk about something else.
No, we can talk about that. Such a complicated answer, I feel like. So I grew up, like I said, homeschooling and dealing with the stigma of being a homeschooler, but also the stigma of being a Black homeschooler, because I guess by the time we were doing it, it was kind of odd to see a family of color homeschooling. Like, I just feel like it was odd. So we got a lot of questions, people quizzing us to see if, like, our parents were really teaching us and, like, going through that stigma. But then when I went to college, I really started to embrace that idea, and I wanted to be a teacher. I was told I was an oxymoron because of the fact that I was a homeschooler trying to enter into the teaching arena, and I couldn't pass the teaching test. So it was like my senior year, that was the last hurdle I had to do before student teaching, and I couldn't pass it. At my college, luckily, we were able to create our own major, and with the guidance of my advisor, the education department, and one of my, honestly, favorite professors there, she and them helped me create a degree called education policy, which is usually for master's programs, but because we can create our own degrees there, we shifted it and made it into a bachelor's degree program. And I took a lot of poli-sci classes my last semester and worked on a senior thesis, and I got really into education as a whole and looking at it as in the inner city contents. I was volunteering in the inner city with my mom, working with her at one of her classrooms, and just got really into what education looked like. how it affected minorities, how it affected Black kids, and areas where poverty was pretty high. But I knew education still wasn't what I needed. And that, like, being a teacher really wasn't the path for me anymore. So I worked out in the school, excuse me, in Western PA, and I was applying for master's programs, and I found one in global development and social justice, because social justice was really what I wanted. But global development was really cool too, because it broadened my horizon and gave me a clear understanding of just disparities in the world, not just in the US, but globally, but also how society, no matter really where you are, can fail the family, can fail the poor, can fail the lower middle class. And that really ignited in me something to dig a little deeper. What does this really look like? So I graduated with my master's, and I ended up having to work a year and a half as a substitute teacher. And I was like, God has a sense of humor. Because I swore I wouldn't have done this. And he put me in a place that I didn't think I was ever going to do, working with students with autism. And I never thought I had the heart for special ed, because I really commend special ed teachers, because it takes a really special individual to teach that, and to teach that area, and to go in knowing that you're not getting the support you need.
Yeah.
And it was really eye-opening. Not only eye-opening from the educational front, but eye-opening from the hurdles that families have to go through just to live, just to provide the resources for their kids. And it gave me a better understanding of what families really go through. So I went through this journey of, like, should I get my PhD? Maybe I shouldn't. Where should I go? What program do I want to do? And I found the one at the institution that I'm going to now that does public policy with a concentration in social policy. And for me, having social policy allows me to really go back to advocate for families and to help them know what's out there for them. Because I feel like people know there's things out there. How do I go about it? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? And it's like sugar-coated, or special privileges are only given to certain families and people don't know. Or what about the families who can't read or struggle with reading because they didn't finish school or whatnot? Like, which families need the help, and how can we help them?
Yeah, it sounds like you're kind of trying to be a safety net for the families who often are just kind of dropped and not shown where to go. And even the families who are, I don't know, busy raising their children and maybe don't have time to sit down on a computer and do research for hours trying to find the resources that they need to make schooling easier. That it's such an interesting. So with your public policy and concentration in social policy, do you think you'll continue down the education route, or kind of broaden your horizons more with it?
I honestly don't know. And I'm kind of open to anything at this point. I know, like, what I think my ultimate goal should be and, like, what I really want to do. And I have a heart and passion for LGBTQIA youth and youth in general who are deemed worthless, not acceptable, who are cast aside because of their lifestyles, because of certain things they cannot control themselves, living situations that it's not their fault, and they just need somewhere to be or someone to help them. And I think part of my journey with knowing worth and acceptance, I think my heart's really tender for teenagers and young adults, really college-age kids too, who have that sense of hopelessness, and reminding them of who they are and what's out there for them. And I think too, a lot of young people, if they knew what was out there for them, would be better able to advocate for themselves too.
Yeah.
Of like, no, this policy actually means this. And it's like, yes, this is what we learned. Use this policy. They can't do this to you because under this clause in this policy, you're actually protected.
It sounds like you are really trying to do the work of loving neighbor and loving yourself, and then figuring out how to love your neighbor like yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're in the middle of this PhD candidacy. You're in the middle of a journey of self-worth. You asked, what am I supposed to learn from this? what would you say is kind of the major takeaway of what you've learned from both your journey to getting your PhD and your personal journey? What is kind of the major takeaway there?
I would say for school, admitting when I need help. Admitting when I need rest and a break.
Yeah.
I think that's really hard for me to ask for help. You can probably attest to that. Because I don't really think I see it as weakness. I think I see it as me admitting something's wrong when I want to keep pushing on. So asking for help, saying, hey, like, I really just need time off, has been a good lesson for me. It's still really hard for me to admit that, but it's one that I'm willing to learn, because how can I be present if I'm not fully there?
Yeah.
For my health journey and this acceptance journey, it's diminishing the words of others. Knowing that what they say shouldn't determine what I believe and what I know. It's forgiving myself in times of uncertainty, forgiving myself at knowing I am human and I'm going to have faults, and that is okay. That doesn't make you less worthy. It doesn't make you less vulnerable. It doesn't mean that you don't have value. It just means you're human and you have flaws, and that is okay. Forgive yourself for those flaws, because they're still beautiful. You're still beautiful. But it's also keeping my head up when others so hard have been trying to put me down.
Well, I wanna ask you two questions that I ask everybody who comes onto this podcast, because this is called Generation Hope, and I invite people here who I think have hopeful stories for others, but then I like to turn around on them. So my first question for you is, what is giving you hope right now?
Spiritual, that God is always in control and that his plans are greater than anything that I can ever imagine. Outside of that realm, that I have been able to build a community who sees me, who understands me, that accepts me, and that loves me.
That's beautiful. And I hope so many more people find that too. My last question for you then is, what do you hope for? And that can be for you, for your family, for the country, for the world, any scale you want. But what do you hope for?
Oh, it's such a God, that's so hard.
Gotta challenge you.
I hope we can come to a point in society where worth isn't just about how we look, isn't about status, isn't about class or about skin color, and that we can learn to truly embrace the uniqueness that it is human beings. That's honestly where I hope we get to.
Yeah, and that, more people can recognize the beauty in themselves and in others. Yeah. That's wonderful. This has been Generation Hope, a podcast by connect.faith. Thanks for listening.